Welcome to the new podcast, A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike, hosted by Billy O'Connor and Frank Pace.
All righty. It's Saturday, September 26th. How you doing, Billy?
And he better gotta be jealous of me, my friend. Life is good. I'm vertical. Nothing hurts.
Yes.
At 72, you know the old joke? They say you read the obits. If your name ain't there, shave. That's pretty much how it's going.
Well, it's the 26th. Our book's still not out, but I guess I'm promised it's going to be out October 1st.
This is because of COVID. This is all because of COVID,
Yeah.
right? Everything's backlogged.
Yep.
And guys, from what I understand, the publishing companies actually held back books on the premise that this would all disappear by the fall.
Yeah, well, so much. So much
So
for
much
the
for
fall.
So much for that premise.
So much for the fall. What do you want to talk about this week? We got Chris Cope coming on. This would be a fabulous comic, up-and-coming comic.
Oh, up and coming for sure. I give you a little background about Chris Cope. I met Chris when I was at the University of Florida. I was 60 years old, and Chris was a young guy, 24, 25, and he had already been headlining at 25. He had already been headlining 7 years all around the Chitlin circuit, you know, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama,
Mississippi.
exactly, the Chitlin circuit. Just like the Borscht Belt, they used to call it
Right.
up in the day
Right.
when the Jewish comics were up in the
Yep.
Catskills. Well, he had already honed his skills pretty good. But what amazes me about Cope, and this is one of the reasons I think he's such a great comic, I've seen him maybe 50 times, 60 times. I have never seen him do the same act. As a matter of fact, I accused him one time of not having an act. I said, you don't even have an act. I said, you just get up there and ad lib, which for the uninitiated out there, if you're a comic, it's like stepping off a cliff without a parachute. I mean,
Well, why don't we not bother having Chris on and just tell us all about you are an Egypt.
I'm an Egypt.
You're an Egypt.
I'm a compounded Egypt.
You're a compounded Egypt.
That's
That's
a goose
correct.
guy. That's the Irish call a goose guy. I'm a goose guy. Worse than an Egypt. But, I mean, you know, you've seen and worked with and friends with Don Rickles
And George Lopez and Dice Clay and Richard Lewis and on and on. We're good. Oh.
but with Rickles especially, he never does the same act, right?
No, he does this. He does primarily the same act. Lopez didn't do the same act. Lopez played the audience. But let's talk about that with Chris. I think Derek, let's go. Can you put up the promo for Chris, because we might as well get him on before Billy tells us everything Chris is going to talk about.
I'm Irish. I can't shut up. What are you, vaccinated with a photograph needle?
Yep. So tell me what we're doing.
Yeah, the one's on Billy.
So this is going to be a short clip of Chris Cope's comedy.
Yeah.
And to give you an idea of what the viewers are going to see.
We'll just keep.
Here we go.
Well, we're doing well so far.
Because why change the Waffle House? Of all places on planet Earth, why change the Waffle House? We know what the Waffle House is known for, right? Thank you. What a smart group of people. That wasn't a trick. It was an easy question. Yeah, so they have their famous dish is called the All-American. It's one waffle. You get a choice of pecan or regular. It comes with 3 different kinds of syrup. You get 2 eggs. Get that smothered and covered. It's diced ham, tomatoes, onions, and cheese. It's like $1.80 extra. Comes with country fries or country potatoes, which is just like the Bob Evans breakfast bonanza, which is 3 buttermilk pancakes. If you want apples and cinnamon on top of that, it's $1.90 extra. Comes with 2 bacon, 2 sausage. You get Jimmy Dean, you get Hillshire, you get turkey bacon or jerky bacon. Comes your choice of an English muffin or toast, which is just like the Denny's Grand Slam, which is 4 buttermilk pancakes. If you want apples and cinnamon on top of that, talk to Irene. She's the midnight today manager, smokes the Parliament cigarettes, has a bad hip and a son that's autistic, but he really likes puzzles.
So that's Chris Cope.
That's Chris Cope.
Now we're going to talk him. We're going to bring Chris on, hopefully pretty soon.
Yeah, that's Chris Cope. And That's just he just cracks me up, man. I think that's a funny bit. That's an amazing bit. Memorizing 4 different menus, you know.
Yep. Yep. Derek lost him.
We got there he is. Oh, who's doing your hair? Sober up your barber. For God's sake, sober up your barber.
I literally have a hair appointment at noon.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. So we got to make this brief.
How long has it been there, handsome? About a year?
What, since I've cut my hair?
Oh, since I've seen you. You dopey bastard. Since I've seen you.
Oh, no. Maybe, man.
Maybe about a year, huh?
Yeah, it was the last time I was up in Pine Mountain doing that show.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're up in my neck of the woods. This is my partner, Frank Pace. Say hello.
Yeah, no, Billy's
Good to
talked
see
a
you,
lot
Chris.
about you, Frank. It's an honor to meet you, sir.
Yeah, but don't get carried away.
Hey.
So, Chris, what have you been doing since the comedy clubs have been closed?
I've been writing a lot. I've been relearning Spanish, depending on how you would. So in high school, my Spanish 1 teacher was a football coach. And we did not learn anything. We watched Mulan and Scarface on loop that entire year.
You know, I had a high school history teacher who was also a football coach, and he played football for the Cleveland Browns in like the 50s or so. So all he would do was show old movies of the Cleveland Browns, Otto Graham and everything, until we got to the finals. And he was in competition with the smart kids history teacher. So he asked us. He said, "Now, I'm going to just tell you, we're prepping for the final." He said, "What's the world's most populous democracy?" And nobody could answer the question. He said, "India." So the next day he'd ask us, "Okay, what's the world's most populous democracy?" About a fourth of the class had retention. So they said, "India." So we got the test, and the first question on the test was, "What's the world's most populous democracy?" Because the other teacher had done the test.
Nice.
So Scarface was how you tried to learn Spanish, huh? So now you're putting more effort into it?
No, it's so Spanish 2 comes in. She comes in like, "Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Usted, mi amigos?" And literally we're all just like, "Say hello to our little friend." And then we sued to get our grades.
So
Florida.
tell me, Chris,
Yes, sir.
you've been at this game now, comedy, for how many years?
16, I think.
16. How old are you?
I'm 36. I started, I was 19, so give or take, yeah, about 16 years.
So when did you realize you were really funny?
Let me see, I was born March 5th, 1984.
Can you ask the housekeeper to move, please?
It's my girlfriend, you motherfucker. She made me breakfast. No one speak ill of this woman. I love her.
Can you recite her menu? Give us the whole menu. What was on her menu this morning? And how much did you have to pay for it? Ain't nobody doing nothing for you for nothing.
She loves me.
So you're at it 19 years, Chris.
16.
16 years. And in this age of COVID, all the comics that you've known in the last 16 years, are there guys that are just surrendering and just saying, "I had it, like I can't do this anymore"? Or have you?
I mean, not really. I think there's a lot of comics that are that call themselves comedians, and I think they realized, maybe this isn't worth the effort, the straight. Like, I'm up to my neck in my career.
Well, you're all in. All
yeah.
in.
So I mean, this is
No way.
I had to take 5 months off when I had my aneurysm. So I've had forced breaks that I couldn't control. So this is just another version of it. I've been writing a lot. So I'm going to come out with
a crayon. What have you been writing with a crayon?
Let me ask you a question. You mentioned your aneurysm.
I finished my first feature script. Kiss my ass, Bill.
You mentioned your aneurysm. How did you have? Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I had an aneurysm also.
Oh.
I had a dissected carotid.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, you're in your chest or your stomach?
In my neck, in my carotid.
Oh, fuck. I'm not a doctor.
Obviously.
Yeah, they did the work. I just laid there. No, basically, I was on the road in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I was about 27, and it was a Saturday before the show. Literally, I had just started having chest pains, and it got worse. My whole body was covered. My whole body went from in 2 seconds not covered in sweat to covered in sweat. That's when I was like, oh, shit, something's wrong. And I called 911, and by the grace of God, I lived because I was conscious, bleeding internally for 2 hours.
Yeah, it's rough.
And you were in a remote part of Pennsylvania, right? I mean,
I was in Harrisburg. I mean, luckily I was near a good hospital,
Good hospital.
cardiology.
So did you make the show that night?
No, but I did apologize for missing the show when I was getting wheeled out. Like, sorry.
And tell me, when the cops showed up, how much weed did you have to flush down the toilet bowl?
It was so funny because he asked me about, he goes, drugs, man. He's like, what drugs do you have? And I literally was like, I got weed in the trash can. He's like, weed didn't do this. And I'm like, drugs didn't either. You see the pizza boxes. Like, this isn't hard math, detective. What, Perry Mason?
Yeah, so I mean, I met Chris up at the University of Florida. He was a young guy doing comedy, and I said, you know what? I'm close to 60 years old. If you haven't made a fool of yourself by the time you're 60, I mean, you haven't really lived. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try this. And I met Chris because he was my weed dealer. Like, I was in college as a freshman in 60, and he was my weed dealer.
Entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur, correct.
Joe Kennedy was a bootlegger.
Hey, Chris, why don't you introduce us to your girlfriend? As long as she's going to...
No, it's okay. You come over, sit up. She's in the background like a little... We're making breakfast. Sorry. Hello.
Yeah. Hello, darling. How are you?
How are you?
God bless you. You got the patience of Job.
In fact, you do indeed. So what do you find appealing about Chris?
Everything.
Let her answer, please.
Well, he's a great guy. We met on Twitter 4 years ago. And
4 years. That's great.
And you're smitten. So, Chris, 4 years, isn't it about time you put a ring on it?
Frank, I'm losing you. I'm losing you, Frank. The connection's looking real shitty here, and I smell pancakes. I don't know if that's my computer telling me to click off, but I just... Everything will happen in due time.
Okay.
That's right, pal. Don't let him put no pressure on you. Don't be like me. Listen, no woman's going to put up with you too long. I mean,
bye-bye.
Marry the same woman twice like I did. Marry the same woman twice. This way it's one alimony. You know, it's smart. She ain't going to put up with you too long after you marry her. Just buy her a house now. Just call it a day.
I can't afford a car, let alone a house.
So yeah, on that note, how are you? How are you holding up? I mean, financially, it's a tough go.
I mean, I got awarded 2 comedy grants that I applied for. Those helped out. I got unemployment. I got all the, I luckily didn't have a single issue signing up for unemployment like everyone else has a hell story. It took me 20 minutes.
Really?
So hearing everyone else is, in much dire straits, I consider myself extremely lucky.
And do you think the comedy clubs are going to be open soon? I mean, or you think they're going to be the last ones to open?
Yes, they're going to be the last thing. This morning, I got told by 2 different Canadian clubs. I officially lost a date in October for next month, because the borders now got pushed back to the 21st of November, potentially, and that's probably not going to happen. The club in Montreal doesn't believe it's going to happen, so it'll be 2021 till I go back to Canada. Luckily, in Florida, in November, I have 6 weeks of work into December.
Hey, so. Let me ask you the question. Are you the Florida man that Billy's always calling about? Everything is always Florida man, Florida woman, Florida man, Florida man.
No,
Florida,
they didn't
Florida
catch
man.
They didn't catch me as much as they could have.
You got how many weeks of work in Florida lined up?
6 so far.
sick. So Florida really don't care, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Florida in June. I went to the belly of the beast in June, and came back, took my COVID test, came back negative. I was the only person wearing a mask, using hand sanitizer, et cetera, et cetera. Florida does not give a shit. It's a lawless state full of idiots. And I say that with love because, look, I'm repping my shirt.
So, Chris, would you consider your comedy redneck comedy?
No.
Expand on it.
No. I don't talk about really anything in Southern life. I mentioned the word Southern once in a bit. To correct Billy in my intro, I have a full album. I was about in the process of releasing my second one, so I do have an act, Bill.
Yeah, I know.
I just love to say that. And
I love to say it because, and I say it affectionately. I really do, because I saw you do 2.5 hours one time in a hotel in Florida. And I swear to God, not a word that came out of his mouth had I seen before. And as a fledgling comic, not somebody who's committed to it like Chris,
so
I got to tell you.
You better hurry up. You're 72 fucking years old.
I'm going to be the darling of the nursing homes, Frank. The darling of the nursing homes.
Finish your soup.
Let's drink my peas. I'm gonna be right there. But I say it because it takes a lot of guts to do what he does, which is like step off the cliff. And I've read, and Chris is a real comic, so he can correct me if I'm wrong, that comedy's not really monologue, it's dialogue. It's interacting with the people that are there. And that takes a lot of balls to walk off that cliff and just free
riff. But also, I mean, having a strong act, like that's the invisible plank that I'm walking on that everyone thinks I don't have a net. It's like, no, if the crowd doesn't want to talk, I do my material. I always start with material anyways. At least I try to. Because if I start with the material, I'm establishing to them I have this ability. And that kind of keeps them on my side, keeps them obedient. And then after, I'm serious, after 15 minutes of, but it's what I want. I want them to be right where I need them. So, and when I do engage them, they trust and open up, which makes my job easier, And my improvising ability just came from years and years and shows and shows and shows where do 7 shows in a week. You get tired of your voice.
Yeah, I agree, because when I worked with George Lopez, every night for 7 nights, I would go to the Nokia Center and George would do a show. And every night the show was sort of 50% different every night, because George would read the audience. He would find out what they're responding to, and he had material that he could go to based on what the audience was responding to. So as no audience is the same, no George show was the same. And if that's the way you're predicating your act and that's the way you're building your act, I give you all the credit in the world, because that's what works.
That's why you have to be malleable to the situation. My job, every time I go on stage, is to be the funniest person in the room. That's what everyone paid. So if I've got to do more crowd work to entertain this crowd, then I will. If they don't want to talk to me at all, I'll stand there for 50 minutes and I'll beat my jokes. I'll do whatever it takes to win. I mean, you have to be adaptable.
So let me ask you, what about the guy who's had a few too much drinks who thinks he's the funniest guy in the room? What do you do with him?
A man you can keep punching. A woman is a hard heckler. Because you got to tap, it's like tap dancing through a minefield. Because the moment you drop the C word or the B word, you lose half the room.
Right.
So, and also, and I hate this may ruffle feathers, but like men understand to a degree. If I keep running my mouth, there might be a physical response.
Right.
And I think with women, they don't have that fear as much. And in my experience, this is coming from my experience, sometimes they can just keep going and you're like, can you just shut the fuck up? Like, I don't want to be mean, any more mean than I am right now. They're the worst hecklers.
Yeah, women. Well, I know bachelorette parties.
Which is just a group of women. I mean, a group of anybody is not good for comedy, because you have a pack mentality. if there's 6 buddies, one buddy's going to feel real cocksure. You know what I mean? But if he's by himself.
Right. Of course.
So, like, I love comedy clubs that don't seat groups in large, like the Comedy Cellar in New York. Never played there. But the one thing I admire about them is they won't let anybody, like, more than 3 people sit at a table, I believe.
Wow.
And it keeps everyone, you're together, but you're an individual, and you're just much easily dealt with.
So, Chris, let me ask you a question. Who makes you laugh? Who makes you laugh?
A lot of people. I mean, I know that's a shitty answer. It's so general and generic, but I mean, Billy makes me laugh. The world makes me laugh. Comic wise, I love Bill Burr, Bill Dwyer. It's so funny. I could sit here all day. Richard Pryor. I could go down the list and love. I met Chris Rock actually I didn't meet for the first time, but I ran into Chris Rock the other day at Five Guys. Chris Rock is one of the reasons why I started doing stand up.
How so?
Exposure. My mom bought me when I was 16. Bring the Pain, his first special, and I remember laughing at jokes I didn't know shit about. I didn't know what tossing salad was, but I'm laughing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it just watching comedy as a kid just punched it into my head. This is what I want to do, and trying to emulate being just funny.
It takes a leap to come out from Gainesville and to come out to LA or go to New York. Most comics that are in college, they say, well, okay, I'm funny, I'm doing well. Do I go to LA? Do I go to New York? But of course, when you get into a market like LA, you have a chance of getting completely up.
I got to the point where after being on the road for as long, because I started working the road at 20.
Yeah.
So by 27, I was headlining small rooms and stuff like that. And every time I wanted to get into something bigger, they'd always go, "What's your credits?"
Right.
And I was like, "Well, I don't have any credits. I live in the South." So, for the idea of me not going anywhere, or the idea of not going somewhere just meant like I was ending the game right there. It's like, well, then if I've reached my potential of what I'm going to do here, I have to go to New York or LA to take that next step. And
since then, you've been on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel, Tosh.0. I'm on a show on Netflix right now called Cooking on High. I'm on 2 episodes of that as a judge. I did Conan. Bunch of fun stuff, man. I feel like I taped AGT this last season, but I did not air because they cut back on everything they showed. So that was a nice kick in the dick.
So when you were able to appear on Kimmel and Conan, did your profile went up for sure with the comedy clubs? Did your
absolutely.
rate? Did your rate go up? Did your rate go up also?
Yeah, because it got me into clubs where instead of like having to piece together for one-nighters to make $1,500, now I can just work a club, and that's what I'm. That's It's B clubs. I'm still working some A- here and there on off weeks. I'm real honest when I email clubs. I'm like, hey, I know you don't want to spend a lot of money. I've got credits, and I'll work an off week. I'll work Thanksgiving week. I'll work. I don't have enough drawing power myself right now to do anything else but just play the game as best I can.
Yeah, you got to work. It's that simple. So you're willing to compromise because you got to work.
Yeah, I'm featuring this weekend in Escondido. I'm sorry, that was 2 weeks ago. Pardon me. I featured in Escondido 2 weeks ago just because I wanted to stay sharp. I wanted to make a little bit of money. Wanted to double dip. And just stay on my game. And I don't mind middling because I was going to do a bunch of new material anyways.
And also, you're trying to bury the headliner if you can, right? You come out there to be the funniest person in the room.
Sometimes, but there's also times like this. These last 2 of the shows, I definitely went out full bore. The other 2, the second shows of the night, I wanted to run new stuff. So I was willing to take, I was like, I'll do okay because this stuff does okay, but I want to hear it in a longer set. I want to do it in a longer set. That kind of, it's gym work. It's literally like gym work.
Yeah. Yeah. George Lopez used to go to the Comedy Store in Pasadena, the Ice House in Pasadena, just to work on stuff. He would still be the funniest guy on the show because he had already written a check and everybody was there to laugh. So they would laugh, but he would just go there to work on material. You mentioned the audience doesn't realize how hard your life is. My friend Stephen Lang is a working actor, successful actor.
Yeah, I know Stephen Lang.
Yeah, but
he's great.
He used to say, "I start every January 1st with the goal of making my nut for the year. Anything beyond that is a bonus." Pretty much the same. Are you at the same point of your career?
Yeah, I'm able to pay my bills solely off stand-up. I do other side hustles just because it's extra money. I'm not going to turn down work. But yeah, I make primarily all my money from stand-up.
That's great that you can do that. But
I mean, because when comics go, I'm a comedian, I can go, no, I'm a taxable comedian. My lights are on and off because of my jokes.
Right.
Not because my parents help or, anything else. It's my blood, sweat, and tears. I fly. I do all the, the driving, all that shit. Whatever it takes. I don't want to do anything else.
How many miles a year will you cover?
I have no clue.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. You have no clue.
I mean, because there's times like I'll drive for 10 hours one way if that's what it takes. Now I'm flying to 80% of my gigs, but like when I'm in Florida, my November in Florida, I go home, see family, and work. Last time I was there, I drove in 1 month 4,000 miles on a rental car.
That's amazing, right?
And I never left the state.
That's the hustle. 4,000 miles in a month. And
all over.
Let me ask you a question. What's the furthest you've ever drove to do a shit gig in front of only a few people? Like, have you ever driven like for 6 hours and show up and there's 5 people there or something?
Yeah. 100 times.
100 times.
I told this.
The thing is, like, people act like when you can do a 50-minute set for 5 people and they walk out thoroughly enjoyed, the moment you give me anything else, and I'm just going to hit that ball that much harder.
Right.
I love when comics go, I could never get in front of a big crowd. I'm like, bro, I got an erection the size of a horse's dick when I see a packed crowd. I get excited like Tyson in '89. I'm just
because it's easier. I mean, it's easier to do a big
joke
crowd.
at that point. That point, it's masturbation for me.
I told a story last week or a couple of weeks ago about Red Fox. Red Fox was in Vegas. Have you heard this story?
I just love Red Fox.
Red Fox was in Vegas, and he was doing a Stardust or some hotel. And the announcer comes out and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Stardust proud pleasure to present Mr. Red Fox." And the music starts. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. And Red Fox walks out stage and the music's continued. Da, 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 da. He looks at the audience and there were 3 people in the audience. He said, 3 fucking people? I'm not doing a show for 3 fucking people. He turned around, he walked off the stage and the band played. Da, 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 da.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Red Fox.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why did he do a show for 3 fucking people? Hey, someone should have told him that.
It's so tough as a comic. If there's 6 or 7 people in the room, you got to somehow relate to each of those 6 or 7 people. Where if there's 300 people or 400, you're just doing your bit.
There's something that older road guys, the guys that have only done the road, they never moved to a big city or anything, just only road guys, they'll always say, "Well, I do my act if it's 3 people or 300. And I'm like, that means you're asleep at the wheel. You're just up there reciting material. I'm like, I'll at least make the show good for fucking 5 people. I'm not going to just stand there and hammer out my bits like I'm just like it's 4:15 on a Friday. I'm just trying to edge out the last 45 minutes. I want them, if you paid for a show, that's exactly what you're getting. It's not my fault that there 5 people showed up. I still got to be the funniest person in the room, and I'll talk to them and do bits, and I've gotten really good at that balance of not hitting them with too much material where they feel like they have to laugh constantly, and I'll just talk to them. And sometimes it's not even jokes. I'm just interacting, just keeping the room alive.
What advice, if not young comics out there, but people doing comedy in general? I was told too late, actually. When I first started doing comedy, I was scared to death, Frank, of bombing. Like even if it was 3 minutes, 5 minutes, I didn't want to get up there and bomb. I just didn't want to. I was scared.
But you have to bomb. You have to bomb before you're good.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to bomb
for real.
to learn. But I was so terrified of bombing that I would recite the same 5 minutes for like a year because I wouldn't stretch myself because I didn't want to bomb. But I found out too late that being funny is not enough. There's
Well, comedy's subjective.
Without a doubt. All art is subjective, like Picasso. I don't understand Picasso. I don't understand
like Picasso. I am a Picasso.
People tell me he can paint, but I don't get him. That doesn't mean he can't paint. But all comedy subjective. Chris, tell me about bombing. And have you ever bombed? And I'm sure you have. You've been comic for so long. But when and where and how?
The first time I bombed as a middle act, I was in Paducah, Kentucky.
I'm familiar with the downtown skyline of Paducah, yeah. The famed skyline of Paducah, Kentucky, yeah.
Oh, God, it's a shithole. It's in a holler.
It's in a holler.
It's like you open up like your hotel door and like there's a mountain right in front of you. Your hotel was like buried in the mountain. And this is the longest running one-nighter in America.
Really?
Yeah. Comedy Zone ran the room for like 25 years. And I get up there, and I mean, this is the first time it ever happened. 5 minutes goes by, and I didn't get a laugh. And I'm doing my bits. This is less crowd work, Chris. This is, younger. I had to punch.
You went to the A material. That's what I was just going to say. You went to the A material first.
5 minutes, and nothing's happening. And then I go, okay, maybe I can jumpstart the car from the audience. And I remember I asked this woman if she was with the man with her neck, if the man next to her she was with, and she goes, yeah, I'm married. And I go, well, is the woman next to you single? And the crowd blows up with laughter, and I'm like, all right, we just hotwired this son of a bitch, let's go. And then for the next 25 minutes, I took it on the fucking chin. It was like that, like the scene in Raging Bull when De Niro's just getting the shit fist kicked out of him. Just, I mean, and the manager of the club is behind the bar, like laughing with my rhythm just so I don't blow my brains out. Just like, and like literally, the thing is, even if you do poorly, someone will at least give you a good job. The first thing he said to me was, well, you can't win them all.
Well,
that's
and
I'm just like, fuck, man. And then I watched somebody snort an Oxycontin outside.
You're rooting for mercy laughs at that point of the evening.
I mean, I was looking for the fucking light. Like, at a certain point, you throw in the towel that, I'm Dooku Kim in there. My brain is swelling. I'm going to die.
Thank you for you talked to the two guys who got the Dooku Kim reference.
I knew it, Sean.
Both of us.
But, again, I bombed one time horribly. And, of course, I don't have anywhere near the experience of Chris, and I'm not near as funny. But I was at a club, the Tempe Center for the Performing Arts, right? So this guy tells me he was running the show. Now, Bill, I know you do a lot of blue comedy, he says, but believe me, if you do clean comedy in this venue, you're going to do a lot better. So I go out, there's about 150 people, some in tuxedos, some in evening gowns, dressed to the nines. And so I don't have a lot of clean material. So I start doing jokes about, it was the election. It was Obama against Romney. So I start doing Romney jokes. Now, as soon as I go into this, I start seeing the faces get real grim. I'm looking out at 150 people, and it's getting grimmer and grimmer. And I'm trying to struggle with these Romney jokes. It turns out it was a Mormon hospital. And I had no idea. So,
yeah,
know your audience, number one, right? I mean, know who you're talking to.
You have to know your audience.
Yeah, that's number one. I mean, even with writing, know your audience.
And if the fact that the Tempe Performing Arts even booked you should have told you something.
Yeah, I guess so.
Who books that?
So what would you say to people that are starting comedy? I mean,
don't.
Would you say don't? That's interesting.
It's a rough life.
I mean, and also,
you got to love it.
I always ask, if someone goes, I go, what do you want out of it? Do you want to be a traveling entertainer? Because that's more likely the goal you'll hit. If you want to be famous, start making fucking TikTok videos, because that shit gets you further. You get a video that goes viral, you get a fan base, all of a sudden, top agencies in LA all of a sudden will call you. And they don't give a fuck if you're in Atlanta, if you're in Seattle. They don't care. All they care about is can they make money off you? And if you got an internet following,
yeah, and
that's the game has changed. And there's comedy clubs that book guys that have never done any kind of stage work, because they can sell tickets on a Wednesday or Thursday. And it makes it hard for guys like myself trying to get a one night, like, hey, can I get a Wednesday? No, we're going to give it to a dude who does Vines.
Yeah, well, again, it's about show business.
It's an ever-changing market that I've got to kind of adapt to and change and meld with as best as I can.
It used to be in the old days. That's before. I'm talking about before me and you. 50 years ago, everybody had the act. So the stand-up comedians would do the act, and they would move to the next town, and they'd do the same act, and they would move to the next town and the next town and the next town, and then they come back in 2 years with a new act that nobody had seen before. Now it's all different. You could be a comic, or you could be a one-note sensation overnight just by having something go viral.
Yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day, you'd go on Johnny Carson, and the next day you'd have $200,000 worth of booked work.
Right.
Because, there's guys, a club owner made a good point to me. He goes, I gave you the same $1,500 check I gave to a guy that's been on Conan 10 times.
Wow. Is that right?
I mean, it's just what the club pays what it pays. And if you can't draw, you get what you get paid.
Well, it's called show business for a reason. It's about putting bodies in the seats.
Yeah, I mean, they
don't really give a damn if you're funny. Just put
late
bodies
night
in the
appearances
seats.
let you headline, but you've got to worry about staying there yourself. Like you either got to be so good that they don't mind bringing you in because you're not famous. I feel like I get that sometimes where, hey, you're one of the non-famous guys we book because you're really good, and it's like, well, that makes me feel good to a degree.
Yeah, well, it's encouraging. Exactly, it's encouraging. Yeah. But again, there's two different talents. I know you're funny. You know you're funny. You've been funny since you were born. But the question is the talent of letting other people know that you're funny. That's social media. That's marketing. Yeah, and marketing is a whole different deal.
And I'm active on social media. It's just everything though. As soon as it jumps to a different platform, you're just like, shit. Okay, what does this thing do? How can I? Okay, it's 60-second videos. How do I get new fans? I mean, because I put my stand-up out. My dry bar special did well on Facebook. But like just even saying that phrase, my dry bar special did well on Facebook.
Right.
That sentence wouldn't have made any sense 5 years ago.
No, you're
ever
exactly
changing
right.
market.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I'll tell you a quick story just to date ourselves.
Tell me every story. I want to hear every story.
So back in 1970, I went to Jacksonville University, right up the road from Gainesville, and we were having a concert. We would have a concert series every once in a while. So they were bringing in Spanky and Our Gang was going to be the headline act, but for an opener, they brought David Steinberg in. Well, David Steinberg killed. He blew away.
Really?
He blew away Spanky and Our Gang, which was a big group in the 70s.
Time, yeah.
So Steinberg was all full of himself, and he did really great. So the next week, or the next time we had a show, they brought Steinberg in to headline, thinking he would be the, what he was the first time. And they brought Harry Chapin in, who had recorded Cats in the Cradle, and Harry Chapin blew Steinberg away. It just, it's just so funny how things work.
But has that happened to you, Chris? Haven't you done sets that have crushed and do exactly the same material and it dies? I mean,
you get to a certain point, this stuff's trusted, but there's those nights where it's like, there's 75 people that didn't want to hear fucking jokes, but that walked into a comedy club. It makes no sense. Sometimes crowds, it's extremely, extremely rare. But it happens. Hey, Frank.
Yes, sir.
Did Artist Gilmore play at JU while you were there?
Yes, he did.
No shit.
Yep, we had artists on last week. Thanks for watching the show.
Yeah, no, I tell you, wouldn't have much trouble picking him out of a lineup. I tell you that. I mean,
I got to meet him and get his autograph 15 years ago. He shook my hand.
Oh, that's a mistake. That's a mistake.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, his index finger stopped there.
How hard do you squeeze it?
Oh, I mean, I was younger. I think he's just being nice to a piggy white boy. But no, he got me. It was I don't think he squeezed it super hard because like my hand's like the size of a dove. So he just probably. He's like, oh, I'm just gonna. His hand just enveloped mine.
Was that a Gator game?
No, it was a memorabilia signing.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I got a bunch of old ABA guys' autographs. That's hard to say.
I used to crack me up when I was sitting down talking to Chris, after a show or something, we'd hang around. We were good friends. And we'd start talking about old fighters. And I was shocked how much he knew about 50s and 60s fighters, like...
we can talk Gene Tunney. We can go back Depression era guys. I don't care.
Yeah, he was always talking about Paul Pender, Gene Tunney, Terry Downs. I was like, how does this kid know about these guys, Because these are fighters that
I don't have a job. Huh? I perform 1 hour a day. I have a lot of free time.
Well,
and I like to learn.
You'll appreciate the fact that when I was doing Head of the Class, which was really the first show that I did, Robin Givens was married to Mike Tyson. So Mike was on the stage all the time. He was on the stage. As a matter of fact, we took him to Russia. When we went to Russia in 1989, and we took Mike to Russia. I'll tell you a quick story about that. We were in Red Square, and Mike comes up to me, and he says, "What's that line?" And I said, "That's Lenin's tomb." He said, "Who's that?" And I said, "Lenin is kind of like the George Washington of Russia. He's the end all and the be all." He said, "He's in there?" And I said, "Yeah, he's in there." He said, "Let's go see the stiff." so we went and saw the stiff, and we went downstairs, and we cut in front of everybody in line because our KGB guy was our liaison there. We cut in front of everybody in line, and we started going down these dank stairs, and I could see Mike's trepidation sort of starting to rise. And then when we got there, Lenin's tomb is it's like sawdust in a uniform with a preserved head. And I said, I didn't say anything to Mike, but you should have seen Mike's face. It was like he saw a ghost, and I guess he sort of did.
Wow. And Tyson showing up in Russia was a whole new problem for you, right? I mean, it's one thing to come with Head of the Class and Robin Givens. Tyson was one of the most identifiable people on the planet.
Yeah, but the Russians didn't really know who he was. The news media, the Soviet liaisons for ABC, CBS, NBC, they knew he did. But Mike was walking down the street one day, and one of the people said, "It's Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali." Mike didn't like that.
So tell me, would you tell comics, I mean, outside of the fact that it could be an exercise in futility because so few comics, not only do so few comics make it, so few comics are able to pay their bills with comedy. I mean, there's not a whole load of guys that can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in the 1%. I mean, I think I'm in the bottom tier of the 1% of comedians that actually can pay their bills off stand-up.
Right. And
there's 2,000 comedians in LA. 1% of them, now that makes that, 20? No. Maybe 10% of them pay their bills solely off stand-up.
Yeah. And a dead giveaway is usually if they put comedian after their name. This is Billy O'Connor, comedian. That's usually a dead giveaway. This guy sucks.
No, it's comedian the first name. If their Facebook name is comedian something, you're not a comedian. When you say my name, you should know that I'm a comedian. The name itself.
Right.
It's not boxer Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, but you mentioned Billy Connolly. Billy Connolly is probably one of the funniest guys in the world. And
I've seen a couple of his specials. Yeah, I agree.
And he was one of the most famous people in the world, every place but the United States. When we replaced Howard Hessman with Billy Connolly in the 5th season of Head of the Class, we had to explain to everybody who Billy Connolly was. I just said, go watch the Billy Connolly special at Royal Albert Hall, and that'll answer all your questions. But famous, fickle.
Yeah, famous where and famous
Yeah.
how big.
Yeah,
but Billy Connolly is hilarious. One of the funniest comics I've ever seen.
Yep.
It's terrific.
Yep.
I mean, he's been in America's cinema, I mean, for 25, 30 years, 40 years now, TV and film.
Yep.
And people still might not be able to recognize him. And that's just like, how?
Yeah, how? Yeah.
Like, but also people, in the middle of this country are so fucking closed off that if you don't show up on CBS and you don't have a laugh track behind it, you don't exist.
Yeah.
Well, everybody's not going to have laugh tracks for long. Everybody's going to better get used to laugh tracks. I'm saying, because there's going to be no live audiences for show business in Los Angeles.
No, I know.
That's for sure.
That sucks.
And trying to do comedy on Zoom or trying to do it without a live audience is not even. I mean, it's got to be 50 times harder.
Yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things. At this point in my career, I just smile, grin, and go, all right, what's the next thing that's going to happen that you're going to throw at me that I'm going to have to just surmount? I've done Zoom shows. If you can hear the crowd, they're not bad. And because, I mainly sit, I can sit here and do my act. And as long as I hear laughter to a point, I can time it, and do a version of my set.
When we did Head of the Class, the first show that Billy did, it took me one day of blocking cameras to tell the camera guys, never take your camera off of Billy, because he's gonna vamp, he's gonna do something, and if you're shooting somebody else's reaction and we don't have Billy's line, I'm going to be pissed off in the editing room. So we got the show night, and Billy was talking to the classroom. As soon as he heard the laugh, he turned around and he faced the audience like that were his instincts to go to where the laughs were coming from instead of staying in the moment and addressing the class. It was very funny.
Yeah, but that makes sense. He was going to react like a comic.
Yeah.
And that was his instincts,
Dangerfield and Caddyshack was complaining. He's like, no one's laughing at my jokes. And I'm like, it's a fucking movie. They're not supposed to. This isn't. You're not you're acting, man. You're doing great, by the way. But trust me, the audience will laugh just in the movie theater. Like he had that thought of like, no one's laughing at my joke. What the hell? And it's just like,
well, Frank had a similar experience with Gene Wilder, right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
We were doing a show with Gene Wilder, and he said he didn't like the audience. He didn't like the audience at all. So he sidled up to me during a show, and he said, Frank, why are they here? And I said, really, Gene, the studio thinks, the studio and the network thinks the audience makes the show funnier. He said, really? I made some pretty funny movies without an audience. So
that's the opposite side of the coin.
That's the opposite side of the coin.
There's an actor who is not a comedian. Why do I have a live audience, right?
Well, that's my favorite line from my favorite year, which is, if I said for anyone to see a movie that wanted to go into show business, I would say watch My Favorite Year, because it's a fantastic tribute to what an up-and-comer has to do to make it in this business. But in that movie, Peter O'Toole was struggling with a show. He was booked on a live show, and he said, I'm not an actor. I'm a movie star.
Big difference.
Big difference.
Big difference.
Big
That's
difference.
a great movie, by the way. Peter O'Toole.
Did you ever see it?
My favorite.
Chris?
I've seen the trailer.
Yeah, well, he's like.
And I've seen some clips. I watched like a Peter O'Toole highlight reel.
Yeah.
On YouTube one day, and there's one line that he had from that movie where he had his dick out.
Yep, I know the movie. I know the line. You want to say it?
Oh,
you want to say it? Or you want me to? No, you say it.
I can't remember all. I want you to do justice.
Well, he's got to go to the restroom.
Yeah.
So he goes into the ladies' room because door was open, and he's taken a leak, and there's a woman right next to him, and she says, "Young man, this is for ladies only." And he looks at his dick. He says, "So is this, but every once in a while I got to run some water through it."
Well, Tom plays an Flynn type character, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he's like an Flynn character. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great line. I mean, I cried when I heard that. I watched that line on loop 10 times. Just 'cause his delivery is just so like pitch perfect and speed and time. Oh.
Well, that reminds me of that was a doggy bag. We were talking about comedy, and I've got a number of good friends who are comedians. Some have reached the highest of heights, and some have always never quite made it. And I asked Rosie O'Donnell about one friend who will remain nameless. I said, "Rosie, I got a friend of mine who you know, who has been successful but never quite made it." I said, and she said, "Yeah, I know that." I said, "Why do you think he never quite broke through?" She said, "Because he didn't give the audience a doggy bag. He didn't give them something to take home from the show. So like the Peter O'Toole line, we're reciting it 30 years later.
Yeah.
That's their doggy
Still
bag.
valid.
Still valid.
It's about being unique, giving them something that they can say, well, he does this and nobody else does this. This uniqueness instead of just being another comic. Don't get lost in the crowd. Stand out because
That's great advice.
Yeah, and if Billy and I had, one suggestion for any comedian is to figure out what your doggy bag is and give it to them.
Yeah.
Every show, because they're going to come see. Give them a version of it every show because they're going to come see you. They're there to buy, but they're there to take something home from it also, and that would be good advice.
That's some good advice. I appreciate that. I love hearing good advice.
Oh, I've never had that bad advice from Frank. And that's what he told me 10 years ago. He goes, "You're not bad." He goes, "But he says, what's your doggy bag? What makes you unique?" He says, "Maybe you should talk about how things have changed since the 50s to now." He goes, "Maybe that could be your stick, But yeah, you want to give. But on the note of advice, I had a comedy club guy who ran a comedy club, big club in Phoenix, and he said to me, "Why don't you do clean?" And I says, "Because I'm funny, dirty." He says, "But you're not going to work. You're not going to work." He says, "Because even a guy like Andrew Dice Clay, if Andrew Dice Clay is headlining and you're going to feature for him, he's going to do dirty. He don't want you up there doing dirty. And if it's a clean comic, he certainly don't want you doing dirty.
Right.
Because the people he's packing the club are there.
But Andrew could do clean also.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, you got.
His doggy bag was the shock value that you got from listening to Andrew. So why should he do clean?
Exactly.
But he had the ability to do clean.
But once you get big enough, you can do anything you want because they're coming to see you.
But Rickles never worked blue at all. Never. Don never worked blue.
Yeah, Don was great at tiptoeing.
Yeah.
What'd you say? Chris?
He's great at tiptoeing. I mean, I've watched as many Friar clubs, all that stuff, live performances. He tiptoes around it.
Yeah.
He tiptoes around the race stuff. He tiptoes around. He just, he's, was a genius at his stuff. He became a verb.
Yeah.
I'm going to rickle him.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great.
And I've said this before. I said I called him the Babe Ruth of comedy because he was the Babe Ruth for every wise ass growing up in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, Rickles is... So, I mean, if you're starting out, and like Frank said, Rickles worked clean. If you're starting out in comedy, you're not getting booked if you're a dirty comic.
Yeah, because, you got to start as a host. And the last thing a club owner wants is the host walking and go, "Welcome to the show. Fuck, cock, pussy." It's just like... it leaves the headliner nowhere to go. If he wants to tell if he wants to be more blue, the host it's a warm glass of milk. That's what it should be. Ease you into the show. You know, who's coming here next week? Just be funny enough to get the car started. Let the middle act get the crowd really warm. Headliner takes it home. We're done.
Yeah, so you should be
And then
almost forgettable as a host.
And then the headliners in the lobby selling comedy albums.
Yeah, exactly.
And signing for the audience.
Yep, I'm selling my koozies and my I don't give a shit. They're cheap and they sell.
Yep.
Whatever works, pal. Whatever works.
I actually been doing. I take donation. I stopped setting a price, and I just say whatever you want to give me. And you'd be very surprised how many people
Give
just
you
walk up and give
above
you
and
$20
beyond.
for a koozie.
Yeah, above and beyond. Yeah, you.
And a koozie's a beer can holder, correct?
Yeah, they cost me 30 cents. Show business.
Another piece of advice I got from a club owner. Obviously, I'm from New York, and I talk fast. And when I'm on stage, of course, I'm nervous and I'm excited, so I talk even faster. And the guy said, when you think you're talking too slow, talk slower. Can you comment on that?
I mean, that was the first critique that I got from anybody. I was like, man, you talk too fast. Like, slow it down. And I also was told early on to not do sex stuff, not be heavily dirty. That's why most of the bits I write are on the cleaner side, because when you're 19, nobody wanted to hear about me getting laid.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, they're like, oh, we don't buy it.
I still don't.
I don't know if it's happening or not, you know.
I still don't, Chris. I have no interest in hearing about you getting laid at all, whatsoever.
So the other night.
And of course, the other thing is, you write what you know. I mean, I remember being in Gainesville with you in college at UF and seeing these 19-year-old kids get up there and tell jokes about the two hookers they put in the backseat of in the trunk of their car. I mean, it just doesn't.
Well, yeah, but then they think they're being groundbreaking and edgy, and they're kids, man. When I was 19, 20, I luckily had other people to beat sense into my head, but if someone's not there to tell you you're doing wrong, you're going to do wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But it's very much like writing. Comedy is find your voice.
Yeah.
You have to find your voice. You have to write what you know. You got to write what you know.
You can do in your room. Stand-up, you have to have. Stand-up's the only art form you have to hone in front of a crowd. Yeah. I can't stand in front of a mirror and practice. That really doesn't work. It's all based in real time. It's all based in, a boxer can shadow box all he wants. But if he wants to get good,
he's got to get hit.
In the ring.
He got to get hit.
Yeah.
He's got to get hit.
You got to take those lumps. My first 3 times on stage did great. Then the next 6 months, I ate shit like it was like meal prep.
Yeah.
Every time I went up, because I was figuring out what I was doing, and then I got a little better, and a little better, and a little better, and a little better,
It takes thick skin to be able to grow. You got to be able to bomb. You got to be able to say, I'm going to take it on the chin. And I was never willing to do that. I mean, I could never accept
My childhood was shitty.
Yeah, well, why did
I had scars walking up there. I didn't care what. At a certain point, I just didn't. It doesn't. I've had things happen in my life that are way more impactful than having a bad set.
Yeah.
And there's a freedom in that.
And I've often said to Billy, I said every successful comic is fucked up. Had a fucked up childhood, is somewhere is fucked up, and they're looking for acceptance in their comedy.
I was 19 looking for laughter from strangers.
Yeah.
If that's not deranged, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I think and a lot of the good comics do a lot of self-depreciating jokes because that's where they come from.
Well, I mean, I've always been a bigger guy.
Wait. Again, it's self-deprecating, not self-depreciating.
We'll catch that when we edit it. We'll catch that when we edit it. Self-deprecating jokes, because, I mean, that's where they come from. I mean, that's not an accident.
I mean, every comic does them. Yeah. Richard Pryor had bits about, did I make her come? Did I make her come? Did you come? Did she? I mean, like, everybody, especially being a bigger guy, if I were to address it at some capacity, whether it's just one joke or my whole set about my size, people are going to go, oh, does this guy have a problem? And they're not focusing on what I'm saying. They're focusing on their own stupid shit in their head.
Right. So, Derek, I think we're pretty coming close to the end. Do you have any, Billy, do you have any last words? Or Chris, do you have any last words? Or except to see you whenever you're acting or whenever you're performing.
Where are you next, Chris? Are you booked or has the COVID got you bogged down?
Next gigs I have are going to be in Florida in November. Those are all over the place. And if you go to chriscopecomedy.com, I'll have the dates up with everything available. If you just go there, you can get tickets. You can find out where it's at. You can reach out to me directly.
So that's chriscopecomedy.com. And, of course, if people want to see your videos, they're on YouTube, and
you go to YouTube. You can go to. They're on my Instagram. They're on my Twitter. You can look.
What is your Instagram and Twitter feed? Why don't you give it?
They're all Chris Cope Comedy. It's all unified, baby.
Again with the alliteration.
Chris Cope. I can't help
Comedy.
Chris Cope Comedy.
I know. A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Is that all they teach at the University of Florida? Is freaking alliteration?
We spend our winning. And winning. That's right. I'm winning. We don't just go to Final Fours. We win them. 2 in a row when I was there.
Well, you were obviously the reason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was their bookie.
Speaking of which, at one game when Jacksonville University played Florida, and it was a preseason game, I was about 3 rows behind Artis Gilmore, and I didn't even have the nerve to say hello to him. But I recognized him, of course, and I didn't put it together that he was from Jacksonville. I went there to see Maddie.
Yeah, well,
Phil Cohen, our mutual friend who was coaching.
That's 2 weeks in a row you told the same story.
Did I really?
Yeah.
See how he calls me on that kind of stuff? That seems unfair, Chris. It's a good thing I got thick skin.
So, Chris, if you want to read about us, you can go to Amazon.com and order If These Lips Could Talk, which will be out hopefully at the end of the week.
Hopefully.
Nice. I really will buy that. I love gossip, Hollywood stuff, all that lore. I eat that shit with a spoon.
Well, if you want to get some books to sell at your next to your koozies,
30 cents. 30 cents a book. 30 cents a book.
Right. We'll give you a price. We'll work it out. Don't worry.
Great.
So that's Chris Cope Comedy. If you want to see more of Chris, and believe me, you should want to see more of Chris because he's just a funny guy, man. He's just a great guy. And Chris, I hope your career zooms. I hope nothing but good things happen. If this plague ever lifts.
More than just Zoom.
Yeah. Thanks.
I want to help you do more than Zoom.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for joining us, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thank you, my brother. Good seeing you, Chris.
Bye. So, Billy, it's time for the lock of the week.
The lock of the week. I've been fortunate so far, but the thing about when I look at handicap in football, I look at numbers, and nothing really jumped out on me this week. And
so you don't have a pick.
You know what? I'm not going to give a pick this week. I don't see anything that jumps out on me, and I'd rather have no pick than if people are following me and misfortunately betting money on my suggestions, which I wouldn't recommend. But if they are, I don't want to give them a loser. But what I will do is next week I will give 2 games instead of 1 this week. I just don't see anything that jumps out at me. How about you? You had a winner.
Okay,
2 winners.
So Derek, give me a game to pick, and I'll pick one. I'll tell you who will win.
Okay, we got the Raiders and Miami.
The Raiders in Miami, and what's the spread?
6.
And who's good?
Who's getting 6?
Is it plus or minus?
Actually, it's not the Raiders. It's STS. What's that? Saints?
The Saints. Okay.
Saints against the Raiders.
So the Saints are 6 over the Raiders.
The Saints are 6 over the Raiders.
The Las Vegas Raiders now.
The Las Vegas Raiders. So if the Saints are only 6, they're probably playing in New Orleans.
I would think they're playing in Las Vegas because
whatever. I'm going to pick the Saints.
You like the Saints 6 over the Raiders?
I do like the Saints 6 over the
Frank's
Raiders.
going with a favorite. Saints minus 6 over the Raiders. Me, I'm taking a pass this week. But next week, I'll give you 2 games. I just don't see nothing that jumps out at me, Frank.
Fine.
I'm allowed.
You've already said that. Yeah, and I appreciate that because we're not picking games just to pick games. We want to pick winners.
Exactly.
And they both pay the same.
Favorites and dogs play the same. You had told me that your first bet was courageous, and I said they don't give you more money for courage.
Yep. Nope. So I think that's about it for this week. We'll be back next week. I don't think we've booked a guest yet for next week, but I'll come up with someone.
And thank you very much again for looking in. We really appreciate it. Exponentially, our viewage has grown immensely, and we're really happy about that.
And thanks to the always affable and willing to work Derek Harris, who is the brains behind this entire outfit.
That's a scary thought, but Derek Harris is the brains behind the outfit.
All right. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you.
We'll see you next week.